Welcome back, Exiles. I hope you enjoyed that intro. This is a huge update to the Bleed Ritualist build I've been working on so far this league. I'd like to extend a huge thanks to everybody that's been following along with me on this journey. This build wasn't something I created entirely myself, but it has been a collaboration between so many different people every night watching the streams. The Bleed Ritualist is a very mobile, dashy character that creates massive chaining explosions of blood and poison while mapping. You'll be jumping over enemies, constantly hitting huge rakes that will proliferate tons of really big damage over time effects and explosions. You'll also permanently have max rage and berserk, giving your character the coolest Kaioken looking aura in the game. While pinnacle bossing isn't this build's strong suit, it is possible. You'll just have to play a bit more ethically than your one button GG easy meta lightning spear builds. When picking out your gear, you need to make sure to hit these numbers. You need 90 or more flat life regeneration exclusively from your gear, 1 to 2 lines of life leech. I recommend 1 on your weapon and 1 on one of your rings. And then between your gear and passive tree, you need to achieve these attributes: 191 strength, 50 intelligence, and 205 dexterity. Now, let's start by going over each of our chosen uniques and how they interact with our build. The first one being the Death Articulated Ornate Gauntlets, which allow us to permanently sustain our max of 44 rage. This is a massive damage increase when combined with the Berserk Spirit Gem, which I will talk more about later in the gem section. The only downside to these gloves is that they cost us 5% of our maximum life per second, which when combined with Berserk ends up being 9.4%. But we can easily sustain this by picking up life regeneration where we can on our gear, jewels, and Ascendancy later on, so don't worry. Also, make sure to socket these with a Wolf Talisman for 10% increase bleed magnitude. Next, our unique helmet is the Deepest Tower Spirit Bone Crown. This helmet cuts your presence area of effect in half, but makes all enemies within your presence count as being on low life. This will enable us to take some massive damage nodes in the passive tree. And there is no downside since we are now a full melee build, and everything we ever hit will always be within our presence regardless of how small our presence is. Next up, our unique boots are the Beetlebite Velour shoes. These synergize really well with our build by giving us a 100% chance to aggravate bleeds. Additionally, for unique boots, they still have a great percentage of movement speed at 20 to 30%. And our last unique, the Venopuncture Iron Ring. Bleed magnitude is king, and a max rolled Venopuncture Iron Ring with 20% physical quality will give us 30% of it. You can even corrupt it for another 5% if you are super lucky. The downside to this ring is that when you get bleed applied to you, you will become chilled. This can be mitigated by using a silver charm, which I'll return to when I talk about belts. Now let's look at all the rare gear we will be equipping. I will show the gear I am currently using as well as list and color code the recommended modifiers in order of importance. There are 4 things to look for when it comes to our chosen spear: as much physical damage as possible, plus to melee skill levels, life leech, and mana leech. Our chosen offhand is the buckler, but if you can't find a perfect buckler, you can temporarily use a shield and get the same effect. You'll just be missing out on some evasion. The main modifiers you will want on your buckler are increased block chance. You need at least 38% block chance on your buckler to cap your block chance with glancing blows from the passive tree. Maximum life, evasion, elemental resistances, and attributes. Now, for our rings, I recommend breach rings, but they are not mandatory, and you'll want to look for these modifiers. You need at least one line of life leech on one of your two rings, maximum life, elemental resistances, attributes, evasion, and flat physical damage. Amulets are extremely versatile in Path of Exile 2 and offer lots of different things that we want. I recommend buying this item last so that you will know if you need to get attributes or elemental resistances on it. However, I highly recommend trying to solve those two balancing acts elsewhere. These are the modifiers you'll want to look for: life regeneration, 50 spirit, maximum life, plus level of all melee skills. If you get a +4 on this modifier, it will turn into a +5 because of our Ritualist Ascendancy. Keep in mind, this will spike your mana costs, then evasion, attributes, and elemental resistance. And you'll want to anoint the amulet with blood tearing for big damage. Now, equipping a body armor with a ton of evasion is essential for getting a comfortable amount of evasion. So look for these modifiers: life regeneration, maximum life, percent evasion, flat evasion, elemental resistances, and dexterity. Now for our belt. GGG recently buffed charm slots on belts, and it feels amazing. So you'll want to look out for these modifiers: an implicit that gives 3 charm slots, life regeneration, maximum life, elemental resistances, and strength. For your 3 charm slots, I recommend using a stone charm, so you're immune to stuns, a thawing charm, so you're immune to freeze, and a silver charm, so you're immune to slows. If you're rich, you can get the unique silver charm called the Fall of the Axe. All of your charms should have these modifiers: increased duration, and chance to gain a charge when you kill an enemy. All right, now let's talk about our gems. First off, Blood Boil. GGG fixed the interaction between Blood Boil and Herald of Blood, so we can use it now, and it feels great while mapping, especially in monster dense areas where the boils will proliferate a lot, which stacks up to corrupted blood very fast. We support it with persistence. This increases the duration of the corrupted blood stacks from 5 to 7 seconds. After testing, there is nothing else that really scales the blood boils. Don't use Swift Affliction because you want this skill to last as long as possible so it proliferates as long as it can on monster dense maps. Now for Rake, your main damage ability. We'll be supporting it with Deep Cuts for more bleed magnitude, Heavy Swing for more damage, Execute for more damage versus low life. Remember, everything we hit will be low life because of our helmet. Ancestral Call. We only use this support while mapping. Every 6 seconds, you get more area of effect and damage, and Magnified Effect. We only use this support also while mapping for more area of effect. When fighting a boss, we'll swap the last 2 gems for Heft for more maximum damage, which synergizes really well with both Stars Aligned in our passive tree and also our helmet, and then Brutality for more damage. Next up is Disengage, your main repositioning ability. You'll use Ingenuity, 30% cooldown recovery combined with the 20% recovery you get from maxing the quality on Disengage is what allows you to spam Rake and Disengage back and forth with no cooldown. It is mandatory for comfort. Then Incision, which guarantees incision application versus bosses. Impale, which stores part of the damage you would have dealt with Disengage onto the target. The stored damage will be added to your next hit, which should be a Rake. And then Bloodlust, more damage versus bleeding targets. But the main reason we use this is so that Disengage can no longer bleed. This is important so that you don't accidentally eat an incision stack with disengage. The only ability you want to be consuming your incision stacks is Rake. Next up is Infernal Cry. This is only used in boss fights. Use it before every single rake and only before rake. The fire damage it adds is useless, but the supports we use here are what make it a powerful ability. Premeditation adds a 15% more damage to the ability empowered by Infernal Cry. Enraged Warcry consumes 10 rage, which is completely okay since we will regenerate them almost instantly to give us 30% more damage to the skill empowered by Infernal Cry. So between the last two support gems, we'll be buffing our Rake with 45% more damage. And the last support gem you use here is Inspiration. Infernal Cry costs a lot of mana, so this will help a ton with the mana costs. And now Blood Hunt. You want to use this as an execution ability still, as the main damage scaling attached to this skill is in the amount of blood loss the target has total. We'll support it with Momentum, which is more damage. Just make sure you use this skill from at least 2 meters away. Rage Forged consumes 10 rage for 35% more damage. Again, using rage as a resource is completely fine. It will just regenerate back instantly. Close Combat for more damage, and Hourglass. Since we only use this ability once per fight to kill the target, a 10-second cooldown is no big deal as a trade-off for a lot of damage. Now let's talk about Berserk. This Spirit Gem increases the effect of your rage, which is really important since we have 44 stacks of it permanently. It also gives you physical life leech, which we need. The downside being that it will cost us 4.4% of our max life per second to sustain. Combined with our unique gloves, that is 9.4% of max life per second. However, if you get the right gear and jewels, plus Wildwood Persistence in our Ascendancy and Life Leech, you'll be able to sustain this just fine. Support it with Vitality. This directly helps you with the 9.4% max life loss per second. You will have to sustain by regenerating 1% of your max life per second. And Cannibalism, if you have enough spirit for it. This is really crazy sustain when clearing monster dense areas. If you don't have enough spirit for the spirit gem swap at the end of this section, this is the first thing you will remove to be able to do the swap. Now let's move on to Herald of Blood. We support it with Hemocrystals. There's been a lot of hate for Hemocrystals, but I'm here to put an end to it. This support is insanely strong. Let's just look at the numbers. My current total damage per bleed in Path of Building is 1.7 million damage. Hemocrystals deal 8% of the total remaining damage, and it creates 4 crystals at a time minimum. That is 136,000 times 4 equals 544,000 damage, and that's just for one target. Plus, you can have up to 20 crystals active at a time, which happens more than you would think, especially when the screen becomes super dense with monsters. That would be 136,000 times 20 for 2,720,000 damage that'll be popping in an area. A lot of times, the initial burst of Herald of Blood and Herald of Plague will kill everything in the area, but then new monsters will move into that area and the Hemocrystals will then kill them, causing more proliferations and explosions. The rest of the supports on Herald of Blood are Envenom. This allows our Herald of Blood and our Hemocrystals to poison, which is really, really important to what we're about to talk about. Next up, Bursting Plague turns the poison we are applying into plague bursts that deal physical damage and can bleed things, creating a loop. And Physical Mastery. This has a higher chance to aggravate bleeding on things that are dying outside your presence. Now for Herald of Plague. We use Herald of Plague to proliferate our poisons applied from Herald of Blood and Hemocrystals so that the bursting plagues on Herald of Blood support can keep popping and bleeding things. We support it with Chaos Mastery, which is just utility for a higher chance at hindering enemies. Also, really, there's nothing else to put here. Now, for Wind Dancer. Wind Dancer raises your evasion, but also when you do get hit, the blast from this skill can bleed things, which normally will die from the bleed and the blood boils, and then burst from Herald of Blood, causing the Herald loop to begin. We support it with Arm's Length, which is utility in the form of knockback, Maim, which is extra utility, things that are maimed or slowed, and Cold Infusion. There's not much else to put here, so damage from an elemental effusion is fine. And finally, the Quadrilla Companion. When fighting bosses, you should turn off your 2 heralds and turn on the Quadrilla Companion. You want your companion to have a physical damage aura and all damage shocks modifiers. The support gems you'll use here are Loyalty for a 10% damage reduction to you when your companion is alive, Meat Shield to make your Quadrilla tankier, Last Gasp, which allows your Quadrilla to stay alive for 4 seconds after it has died, and Malady. Your Quadrilla will have a base chance to bleed, which means it can consume the incision stacks on its target. We don't want it to do that. So by using Malady here, we convert its chance to bleed into chance to poison so that the incision stacks will be protected and remain untouched so that you are the only one who can consume them with your Rake. And now I know people are going to ask, why no Bloodhound's Mark? Well, there are 3 reasons. We do so much damage at this stage of the game that it is unnecessary. Also, high tier pinnacle bosses don't seem to get stunned by it. My guess is that it's bugged, and we don't have any space left for it. We don't have any additional gem slots, so it's the one that got cut. All right, now before we go over the passive tree, I want to talk about the jewels you will want for the build. We use 1 unique jewel. It is a From Nothing diamond for Zealot's Oath. This jewel allows us to pick up 75% increase attack damage. For the other 3 jewel slots, there are a couple things to consider. If you need more life regeneration, which you likely do, then get the recommended rubies I'm about to list out until your life regeneration becomes comfortable. Keep in mind, your life regeneration does not need to keep you at max life, because Life Leech will keep you topped off while you are in combat. You just need your life regeneration to be high enough that if your Life Leech were to stop for a second, you aren't losing your life too fast. My life regeneration is at 175, and this feels comfortable to me. The recommended rubies will come with these prefixes: percent increase magnitude of bleeding. This modifier is so strong, let's just say it's mandatory. And then the other prefix line will have one of these 3 modifiers, which all of them do the exact same thing: percent increase attack damage, percent increase global physical damage, or percent increase melee damage. You just need one of those 3. And then the suffix on the rubies will be percent increase life regeneration. This modifier is mandatory, so you can sustain the unique gloves and berserk. And then for the final suffix, look for either percent increase bleeding duration or percent increase amount of life leached. Once your life regeneration is at a comfortable number, you may have 1 or 2 jewel slots left. You can either pick up rubies with similar modifiers, just not the life regeneration, or you can get the recommended emeralds I will be showing. The emeralds are pretty simple. They're going to come with percent increase evasion or percent increase attack damage if your evasion is already comfortable. And then the other line you'll want to look for is percent increase magnitude of ailments you inflict. And now that we've discussed the recommended jewels, let's dive into the passive tree I'm currently running at level 92. All right, the passive tree. We'll go through this and I'll kind of explain what we're doing here. So at the start, we're going to take a bunch of evasion. This is the only evasion we are going to be taking. So if you need more evasion, you can grab these 2 nodes right here. But if you have high enough base evasion, this is all you need since we will also be stacking block, which we'll get to in a second. Come on down. And the first set of nodes we're going to take right here are some incision nodes. These will give you a total of 30% bleed magnitude against enemies affected by incision. Bosses will always have incision on them because our disengage is a 100% chance to apply incision. And then keep coming down right here. This is the first big section of low life nodes. So these synergize with our helmet. Everything, every enemy within our presence will be considered low life. So this is just massive, massive damage nodes right here. You can see the small ones are 30. The big one is 60. And this node right here, stars aligned. Damage with hits is lucky against enemies that are on low life. This is huge. What lucky means is that you'll roll the damage number twice and take the higher of the two. And then back to the highway and going down. Right here, we have our first big ailment section. So what's cool about this is it's damaging ailments. So this will affect both our bleed and our poison. Then on the other side of the highway, glancing blows. So our defensive layering for this build is primarily evasion, but also it is block chance. Your buckler or shield, whatever you have, hopefully a buckler, if you can get it to have 38% block chance, glancing blows will double it to 76, but the cap for block is 75. So this will give you basically max block chance. And block chance is the same as evasion. So by stacking evasion and block, you're basically giving yourself lucky evasion. So but with glancing blows, you're going to take 50% of the damage from your blocked hits. However, you're never going to see this damage because of our life leech. And we'll get to that in a moment on the other side of the tree. But because we're always life leeching this chip damage, you will never notice it. All right, then moving on down. This is our From Nothing diamond right here for Zealot's Oath. We showed this earlier, but this takes you up here so you can allocate stuff not connected to your tree, and you'll be grabbing these three big nodes for 75% increase attack damage total. And then down here on both sides, right here, we have the other section of incision. So you get another 15% bleed magnitude against targets with incision right here. So this is a total of 60 if you add it with the nodes at the start of the tree. And then the big notable here, enemies you apply incision to take 2% increase physical damage per incision. For whatever reason, they word this as increased, but it's actually a multiplicative increase of damage. It doesn't just add to the rest of your increased damage or increased magnitude. So this is really strong. Even if you're only getting a couple stacks of incision on a target at a time, this is really, really good. Make sure to grab that. And then down here on the other side, another ailment section right here for chance to inflict, which doesn't really matter too much. I guess it makes your Herald of Blood have a higher chance of inflicting poison. And then a bunch of magnitude right here. Very nice. I guess one thing I should mention too, um, with the 1,000 cuts, if you want to, I don't particularly think it's a comfortable play style, but you can play with rapid assault and put incision on rapid assault instead of disengage. Um, and then you'll pretty much, you'll do two rapid assaults and they'll always be at 10 stacks of incision. That's an optional thing you can do. I never really it's pretty strong, but it's not very comfortable, so that's why I don't do it. And then going back up on the other side of the low life nodes, we'll go across right here, across the valley. And this section of nodes right here on top, we have a bunch more bleed magnitude. Bleed magnitude is king. We're picking that up everywhere we can. And right below it, These this section of nodes, I have a feeling is gonna get nerfed. This is the craziest section I've ever seen. So we equip a shield or a buckler, and it gives us a bunch of defense, right? We're gonna have 75% chance to block because of glancing blows, right? So this section right here, we're gonna add it up. 10% increased damage while holding a shield. 10, 20, 30, 1% increased damage per 1% chance to block. Um, this is insane. So 75 plus 30 is 105 increased damage. This is just insane. And then back down the valley here, we'll have our first jewel right here. And then just below the jewel, there's some more magnitude of bleeding. And then on the left side of the jewel, more magnitude of bleeding right here. And this section, this is a big area of effect section. This is really comfortable for mapping. You definitely don't want to skip this when you're mapping. Having the extra 36% increased area of effect on top of magnified effect and ancestral call is this feels really, really good for mapping. Now, when you go to do pinnacle boss fights only, if you're going to do a couple fights in a row or even just one, if you want to be sweaty, you could take these 3 points out right here and you could move them over to these 3 on the very end. So you'd be trading area of effect for some more attack damage over here on the side. And it's quite a bit of attack damage. I'll be honest, I don't do that. I just the fight's just a little bit longer, maybe 20 seconds if that longer. It's not really a big deal, but if you want to, you can. Continuing on, we'll come down right here, and this is our section for max rage. So because of our unique gloves, we are always at maximum rage. This gives us an additional 14. So instead of 30, we have 44. This is super, super important. Once you have the gloves, and especially once you have Berserk, you'll definitely want to make sure you have these 4 nodes picked up. And then right next to it, we have a jewel socket. And right down from the jewel, this is our section of life leech. So in here, there's some big physical damage and increased amount of life leech on the left side. But on the right side, this is the most important life leech node on the entire passive tree, fast metabolism. And what this does is it makes it so normally life leech is a 1 second heal over time. A 1 second heal over time. And when you hit maximum life, it will be removed from your character. So what's nice about this is that if you do hit max life from your life leech, it will not be removed. So if you're taking constant chip damage from glancing blows, or if you get like stunned for a second or something, and you're at max life when it happens, any of the kind of like any of the remaining life leech that you have from your last hit will still be healing you. So this is really this adds a lot of comfort to the life leech, because otherwise, you know, your life leech it's really short if it's falling off of you every time you hit max life. Definitely don't want to pass that up. And then heading back up to where we turned off the path here, this is another section of low life. For only 3 points here, you get a ton of increased damage. So the first one's 30, second one's 30. This big one, finality, 120% increased damage. This is insane. And then continuing on, we've got our last jewel socket right here. And right next to the jewel socket, a big section of increased magnitude of ailments, 12, 12, and then 30% and 20% increased duration on the last one. This is a massive section of damage. Definitely don't want to pass this up. And like I mentioned earlier, if you want to, when you're doing pinnacle fights, take the points out of area of effect and you can put them right here on the other side of this section for a big boost to attack damage. And that's the passive tree. I'm level 92. This is where we're at. The next few points I get, I'll probably just be putting in over here, um, on the attack damage here. And and I guess I'll show the anoint real quick as well. On our amulet, we're anointing blood tearing, more increased magnitude of bleeding, and increased physical damage. It's a little expensive. It has an isolation in it, but it's very good. If you need evasion, you could consider anointing bestial skin. It's very affordable and it will give you a nice boost to your evasion. And now let's go over our ascendancy. So the ascendancy, the first two you'll want to pick up is the extra ring slot and mystic attunement for 25% increased bonus to rings and amulets. This is really, really strong. It's going to make it really easy for you to cap out your resistances so that you can put other modifiers on the rest of your gear. Very, very good. Also, it's going to boost the bleed magnitude on your venopuncture iron ring. Really strong. Definitely grab these two first. And then the third one I would pick up would be blood boils up here at the top. You get increased physical damage. Very good. And then blood boil. Since GGG fixed blood boil, it now works with Herald of Blood, and it's very comfortable for mapping. Something I'll say about blood boil is, you don't have to stay next to one mob long enough for it to get 10 stacks. You just need to get one stack. So a second and a half will add one stack. You need to get one stack on like 10 mobs, kill all 10 of those mobs. They'll all spread their stack to nearby monsters. And now the 11th monster in that pack that's still alive will have all 10 stacks on it. And then when that monster dies, it will start to spread max stacks around. So it doesn't take as long for the stacks to stack up as you may think. Very strong. And then the last one here, Wildwood Persistence. Um, the small node, 10% increased life recovery rate. This is basically the same thing that we're getting on our jewels, on our rubies. So this is really good. And then Wildwood Persistence itself, 5% increased life recovery rate per 5% missing unreserved life. This is really, really strong for us because we're losing life, so much life per second due to our gloves and berserk. If you don't have enough life regen to keep your life max all the time, it's okay. Your life may go down to like 75%, and then Wildwood Persistence will catch it. And that's good enough. You just need Wildwood Persistence to catch you somewhere between like 50 and 75% life. And then whenever you're in combat, your life leech will keep you topped off the entire time you're fighting. That's how it is for me. If I go out of my tree here, you'll see. There it goes. You'll see my life start to drop, and it will stop somewhere around here, around 75%. And that's the ascendancy. That's the passive tree. Again, currently level 92. Hopefully that helps you guys out, and the explanations were good enough. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next section. All right, now let's talk about some gameplay tips. First off, there are two ways to animation cancel the end of Rake. You can either disengage, or you can use your parry or raise shield ability depending on which offhand you have equipped. Here are some side-by-side examples of what all three options look like. If you do disengage, you can disengage in any direction. And actually, in most cases, while mapping, this ability should probably be called engage because you'll be using it to go forward most of the time. It can jump over small enemies and really help your mobility through a map. Now, for both map bosses and pinnacle encounters, we do a couple simple swaps. First, you'll want to turn off both your heralds and enable your companion. The companion you will want is a Quadrilla with extra physical damage aura and all damage shocks. Then make sure to do the same gem swap that was mentioned in the gem section, that is Magnified Effect and Ancestral Call for brutality and heft. Your bossing rotation will look like this: Rake, disengage, repeat until the boss is shocked, Infernal Cry, rake from as far away as possible, repeat until the boss is at 25%, Blood Hunt. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was by far the most effort I've ever put into a build. I hope you guys find it helpful. It allows everyone to reach their goals this league without playing Lightning Spear like everyone else. If you enjoyed this video or it helped you out, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up and like the video. Also, come check me out when I'm streaming either here on YouTube or over on Twitch. We have an active community Discord if you would like to join. And as always, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on whichever video I'm cooking up next. Thanks again. Peace.